All right, let's get right into it. The World Cup semifinals are set. Conor McGregor embarrassed himself and still walked out with the fortune. And Major League Baseball Draft Day 1. I'll give you the winners, the losers, the value picks, the reaches, and a couple of teams that drafted like they've never watched baseball before. Let's go. All right, let's start with the World Cup because the quarterfinals were filled with big boy soccer. No passengers, no flukes. The teams that are still there after all this, they earned it. So we had France and Morocco. France ended up 2-0. Finally looked like themselves, controlled the match, shut down Morocco's miracle run, and showed real quality. This wasn't survive and advance by France. This was, we're better than you, France. And when they decide to impose themselves, they're terrifying. And Mbappe with another good game, even though he missed a penalty. Next, we had Spain 2-1 against Belgium. They're through. It was a match that was tighter than people expected. Belgium definitely pushed them, but Spain does what Spain always does. They find the moment. They keep the ball, they keep calm, and eventually they break you down. And that's exactly what they did here, and Belgium just couldn't hold it together. Next, we had England against Norway. This was a little bit of a controversial match because, again, we had some refereeing that was, not everybody agreed with how the game was officiated, but we're not left with a team that isn't worthy because England makes it through 2-1, and the bottom line is that knocking out Norway and Holland is a real statement. Holland scores, Norway pushed, and for years, that was the kind of game that England loses. And the game where they choke, where they fall apart, where they become a punchline, not this time. They're very talented, deep all the way around, a complete team. They stood up. They matched Norway's physicality, they matched them mentally, and they finished their chances. And that's dangerous. So we're certainly not going to overlook them now that they're in the semis, and everybody there could win it. And last but not least, we had Argentina 3-1 against Switzerland. Argentina handled Switzerland like a veteran team. No panic, no drama, just business. Switzerland tried to slow it down. They tried to frustrate them. But Argentina just has knockout soccer in their DNA. They were really tough. They found goals. The team just refuses to be overwhelmed in a big moment. And it seemed like this one was a walk in the park for them. So semifinals are set. 2 massive matchups. On Tuesday, Spain against France. This is a heavyweight match, and Spain wants the rhythm. They want to control possession, and France wants chaos, disruption, and physicality. Spain will probably dominate possession, but France will have to take advantage of their moments. And in my opinion, I think from top to bottom, Spain looks like the better team. France is dangerous simply because they have Mbappe. They could beat anyone with Mbappe. And yes, Spain has to be close to perfect to shut him down. But France just has to be France, and they could make it through. I'm going to take Spain in a 3-2 game here, and that would be the most goals that Spain has given up all tournament. They've been terrific defensively. They haven't really broken down, and I just think they're going to keep calm, and I think they're going to get through France here. And then we have England and Argentina the day after on Wednesday, July 15th. You know, this is theater right here. This is history. This is everything you want in a semifinal as well. You know, England finally looks like a team that believes in itself. Argentina looks like a team that refuses to die. England, top to bottom, probably the more complete team. But Argentina has the most dangerous player in the world, and Messi. If England gets ahead early, I do believe they could control the match. If Argentina drags them into a street fight, you know, England's going to be in trouble. This is going to be a war. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be physical, and it's going to get nasty. And it could be one of these matches that we talk about for a while. So that's it with the World Cup. I want to move on to a little bit of UFC. You know, I hadn't planned on talking any UFC. However, UFC 33, which featured Conor McGregor against Max Holloway, drew incredible interest. It made $20 million at the gate, which was a top 5 UFC event of all time. $1.5 million pay-per-view, $1.5 million from pay-per-view buys. And Conor McGregor walked out with $30 million, and, you know, at the end of the day, that's just what this was. This was a money grab for him. This was a money grab for the UFC. And I hate to say it, taking advantage of all the Conor diehards. You know, at this point, I don't have anything positive or negative to say about Conor. You know, I wish him well in his retirement. I hope that this is the last time we see him, because he is simply a shell of himself. He didn't make it out of the first round. He didn't land a punch. He's not even close to being in contention for anything. He's not a threat. He's a brand. You know, you lived off of the nostalgia of seeing him walk into the octagon last night. He's a cash machine. You know, listen, he changed the sport of MMA forever. There's no question about that. But the sport has passed him by. And I really hope at this point, instead of, now he might, and I could see him doing this, he might not want to go out this way, and he might fight again just to say that he made it through a round. But at this point, man, it was a 5-year layoff. I think it kind of speaks for itself. And even if it happened again, would it garner the same interest despite all the Conor diehards out there? I don't know. I just hope he retires, and I think that should be the end of Conor McGregor's career. A terrific career, a great career, one that will be celebrated for the history of MMA, not just UFC. Let's get into a little bit of the MLB draft. So we had day 1 complete, and I'm not sure what day that was, whether that was a couple of days ago, but we have a lot of news from it. I want to make sure that's covered here. So who nailed day 1? You know, a lot of teams nailed it, and some teams stumbled, and some people were also shocked by some of these picks. So the Chicago White Sox, very overwhelmingly, according to a lot of sources, best day 1 of any team. They had the number 1 pick, the second pick in every round, and pick 34. and they owned the night by taking Chowalski, the consensus #1 prospect, and then Landon Tome and Cole Prosek, 2 high upside high school bats. And then Joey Volchko, a project arm with upside. Then Eric Segura, sinker slider right-hander who could be a back-end starter. And this is how you're supposed to draft when you have this kind of capital. They stacked the cupboard and overwhelmingly had the best draft day one of anybody, according to a lot of the pundits. Then the Rockies, shockingly competent. They take Tyler Bell, who was Keith Law's #3 player, who played with one working shoulder and still raked. And they add Jack Natili, an everyday upside catcher, Daniel Jackson, the Golden Spikes winner, and Logan Redeman, maybe the best pitcher in the class when healthy. So Colorado walks out with 4 legitimate prospects, and they're looking pretty good so far. The Kansas City Royals, smart, strategic, and upside heavy. They take Zion Rose at #6, one of the best pure hitters in the class, and they save the money doing it. They grab Taylor Rabb, a fast-moving right-hander, and they add Max Yell, a lefty who came back from Tommy John. So there's a little bit there, maybe a little bit of a long, comeback there, but the money they save goes to Jack Slidham, a high school righty with a lightning quick arm and a big frame. KC drafted, they clearly had a strategy here, and they weren't just throwing darts at the board. So good on them. The Minnesota Twins, in a lot of people's mind, took the best catcher. Von Lackey at #3 is a monster pick, and according to Keith Law, said he would have taken him #1 overall, and that would have been perfectly fine. Then they add Carson Tinney, a bat-first catcher, and 3 pitchers with upside. So Minnesota walked out with a franchise catcher and a handful of lottery picks. And that's a team that desperately needed to reload the farm system there. The Tampa Bay Rays, what a surprise. High school heavy and high upside. They take Grady Emerson, the best high school player in the class, and then a bunch of high school picks and 1 college arm. Classic Rays. They bet on the youth, and they bet on the upside of that youth. And then the most interesting pick, this was the one that shocked everyone, the New York Mets. I mean, they can't stay out of the news to save their lives. They took Carson Wiggins, didn't pitch this year, internal brace procedure, apparently fully recovered. He could pitch in pro ball immediately, could pitch in the majors this year, but Keith Law had him 72nd on his board. So to say that it was bold and fascinating and very Mets would be underselling it. This player is either going to turn out to be a complete bust or somebody who might actually be able to help them sooner than later. We'll see. And then probably the best value picks. The Blue Jays at pick 131, Will Brick. #32 on Keith's board. Best high school catcher in the class. Plus defense, excellent bat speed. And then Roman Martin, the A's with pick #111. He was #26 on Keith Law's board. Natural shortstop. Better defender than Chowalski. And according to a lot of people, played out of position at UCLA. And then you had some pretty big reaches here. The Red Sox, who, according to a lot of media outlets, bombed the first day. They were given a D in some pages that I saw. With pick 20, they took Jake Schaffner, who was number 79 on Keith Law's board, at number 20. He might be a center fielder. I don't think anybody's really excited about this pick here. And I think there's a reason why Keith Law had him where he did. Trey Abel, the Brewers took at pick 25. This was another team that, from what I saw, nobody graded really well after the first day. An unranked and apparently does not really have any upside tools. So just doesn't look like a pick that's exciting a lot of people around baseball. And that's surprising because the Brewers had been pretty good at keeping their farm system stocked. And then this was a really surprising one because you wouldn't expect the Braves to be here, but Carter Beck, they took him at 26, an unranked player. You know, Keith Law had him maybe the 3rd to 5th round, and this was a massive reach according to him. So either the Braves are complete geniuses and know things that other people around baseball don't, or this is simply a terrible pick. The biggest question mark, I think, are the Phillies. Now, a lot of people don't understand what they did. You know, they took Tyler Spangler, who didn't play all spring due to a back injury, and then they took Caden Bogenpaul, huge power but huge swing and miss. So big time strikeout guy. And then reliever type arms. So is there upside there? Sure. But according to many, the risk is completely off the charts. And you know, those are pretty much your big stories of round 1 of the MLB draft. We're not going to get crazy with the rest of it. I might do a quick recap sometime this upcoming week when it's all said and done, but this is the gist of it right here, folks. So, World Cup is set for the semifinals, Tuesday and Wednesday. Huge matches, going to be really exciting. And other than that, I will see you guys later.